for all of the good things we try to do on this island is provide some certainty. It's not a one-day wonder, a flash in the pan or something, or yet another study, and another piece of detailed work, which sits on someone's shelf, gathering dust to be ignored by subsequent councils.
Money won't pay you.
Exactly. That's, really this plan, I'm passionate about it just because of, I really feel that our natural environment is a large economic driver on the island, and I live here, and this is a great guide from a staff perspective to move us forward. And the whole intent of this plan was to make it a living document, to bring it to life, and not to have the master plan sit on a shelf behind glass and point to it. So, really involving the Parks and Trails Committee, as is in the recommendation before you today, in bringing back, and so council will always be involved with any decision that is made in the future moving forward, and the community as well, and see what the priorities are, and break it down into bite-sized pieces, so to speak, over time.
Yeah. Raise our consciousness, make us actually think about it, and have something to hang your hat on when you want someone to go out and fix a trail or fix a bench or something, and say, well, we have a plan, and in that plan it says we should be doing this, and no one's done it. This is obviously the very, very necessary step in moving forward with taking our natural spaces a lot more seriously, and integrating recreation into it. I think that's an important thing, and I appreciate that you did that, because we've always sort of thought of our parks as being wild lands and our recreational areas as being the school grounds. So this is good. It's helped us move that focus a little bit, and I think really, really well done. Thank you.
Thank you.
You've done a lot of work, and and not to belittle the areas that you've worked in, but I think you've gone too far. I think going into some of the natural capital, Aboriginal culture, stewardship and partnership, and a little bit in some of the other areas, you've gone into what I don't consider to be a parks plan, what I consider to be an environmental plan or a heritage plan or something else. And so I think there's a bunch of things in here from my perspective that don't belong in a parks plan. If you want to acquire parkland for conservation, then we also have the Islands Trust Fund, and we have the Bowen Island Conservancy, and we have other entities. And so the way you've drafted this, it reads to me more like a parks and environment plan, not a parks plan. And so I'm not supportive of it to that extent. I've got a lot of little typos and wordsmithing things which I'll send off to Bonnie. I've also got some of the maps you seem to have labeled things what they aren't, such as road ends, or Leeman's not labeled as crown land, Leeman's labeled as a park. So I think the maps right now, either you put those in different colors, you either label them what they are, or you put them in a different color and label them as potentially to be, because you've got a lot of stuff in here that if I went to the zoning map, it's not parked on the zoning map. So I think there's some things there that need to be fixed up, and then I've got I agree with an awful lot of the comments that Councillor Nicholson made, except the one, I think most of the natural capital section belongs somewhere else. And then there seems to be a totally contradictory statement in number 10, for example. It says the limited availability of neighborhood and waterfront parks are key considerations. But yet you look at the map and you look at your stats and you look at that orange bubble, and everybody can walk to a park. And in the section about talking about playscapes and stuff, you seem to be ignoring the benefits of crawling around over a log or through the trees or in a bush or on the beach, and building forts on the beach, that you have to create parks where kids can do those things, but we can do them in natural setting right now. And then a bunch of very specific questions, and I was one of those people that was up. I probably got a comment on practically every page of this document, and I don't think you guys want to sit here while I go through them all.
Thank you.
And I don't know how to transmit it to Bonnie either, because it's on my iPad. So I will get that transcribed and send it, but I can't support the recommendation as it's written right now without some of this pared back.
I think for our purposes at this time, we can, the committee of the whole, that council, or at this point, we can receive the report and forward to a council meeting for adoption.
Oh, that was one more comment. The public is, and there wasn't a lot of people out there at those open houses. I don't know how many people showed up at both estates. But how, is there any, going to advertise this and let the public have some read and some comment beforehand? And then my last question, which is, you have no money in there for acquisition of right-of-ways or easements or even land, and I don't know that you're going to get right-of-ways, easements, or land easily without having some money in the pot, donation receipts and stuff like that.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, there was a question there, I think, around the issue of community feedback, and that's what happened earlier this year. Was basically these recommendations went out to the community. So, Bonnie, you talking about?
Just not being around here a long time for 6 years and just seeing the process here with the community consultation, there were a lot of new faces that I talked to over the last 2.5 years. At BOFest, there were a lot of new community members that I was able to speak to. I believe having the youth at the table was amazing, and some of the elders that I didn't, a couple which I didn't know that well. At the pop-up booths, again, I met a lot of people that I didn't know. And I think with the statistically valid survey, that the information gathered there was very invaluable, because it wasn't just the people that use the parks. It was non-users. And so the information gathered there was invaluable. I think the two open houses, the first open house was not that well received. The second open house, we had approximately 35 people come through, which on Bowen is fairly good turnout, and it was very enthusiastic, and people came out and they had concerns, and we were able to talk to them about their concerns. So from a staff perspective, I really feel that the consultation process has been very thorough. Yeah, so I just wanted to say that.
Cool, thank you. And Sonali?
I also think it's awesome. I think having been involved with it all the way through, that it's been a robust community consultation. The one I've seen that comes closest to it was the OCP that I've been involved in within the past 10 years. In terms of the number of different kinds of ways that people could be involved, and the specific workshops to outreach to the seniors and the youth, for example, that don't usually get involved in things like this, let alone the kids putting their words on the leaves. So that part of it I'm very happy with, and the rest of it I'm happy with too. I'm as chair of the Parks, Trails and Greenways Committee, we gave it our approval. I wanted to mention about the numbers, that having this plan will actually help us gain money. For example, the Maggie Cumming Legacy Fund that is held by the Bowen Island Community Foundation, they've been waiting for us to have this plan. So now that we've got the draft, and assuming that we adopt it today, we've got an implementation workshop scheduled. So the Parks, Trails and Greenways Advisory Committee will compare our sort of draft work plan that we've been working on over the years with this, and figure out how they all come together, and try to identify some projects that we can go out looking for funding partners to get going on right away. And then I also wanted to mention about the 50 beach access points. A good number of them are what we have traditionally called buffalo jumps. They're the little raw edges of things that nobody could build on, and so in the earlier days, They were the parts that were given to the community as park, and that's partly why I'm happy to see that acquisition criteria in there about usable land for parks. And although I really like the idea of Bowen as a land of 50 beach access points, it sounds great. And so I'd like to move the recommendation if people are ready to do that. Bonnie read it earlier, but I'll just read it again. That the committee of the whole recommend that council adopt the parks plan as attached to the October 16, 2017 report prepared by the manager of Parks and Environment. And that the committee of the whole recommend to council that the parks plan be, I guess I should say draft maybe? That the committee of the whole recommend to council that the draft parks plan, final draft, be referred to the Parks and Trails Greenways Advisory Committee and the manager of Parks and Environment. No, this is the plan. Development of an annual implementation plan to be brought forward to council at a future date. So I'm moving the adoption of the plan as I just read.
Okay, I'll have a seconder.
Second, but just a discussion. The only amendment I'd like to do this is if I could ask if it could be referred to the Community Center Steering Committee and also to the Recreation and Community Services
Oh, yeah.
Commission.
Right.
The Parks, Trails and Greenways Advisory Committee recommended that council adopt the 2017 Parks Plan in principle. I'd like to move an amendment that the council adopt the Parks Plan in principle.
I'll second that amendment.
Okay.
I'd like to vote in favor of this. I can't vote in favor of it if it's just the bold adopted. I can vote in favor of adopting principle.
Yes, no, actually, I thought our normal process on this really was at the committee of the whole meeting to receive the report.
It goes to a council now,
refer to
right?
council for
So
consideration.
we just committee of the whole recommend to council, that council adopt it.
No, but normally it is that the committee of the whole receive the plan and
In the
refer
past,
to
it's
council.
always been,
You do
committee of
that.
the whole considers and makes a recommendation to council as to what council should do.
Okay,
Yeah.
so your amendment, again, Maureen, was to,
adopt the Parks Plan in principle as attached to the et cetera.
Could you explain, just curious, why you're not happy with this? Like, what's the subtle difference between what you're
Because
proposing?
there are a number of specific points that I don't support in the Parks Plan. I don't support discouraging cash and lieu. I don't support.
Okay, so you
the
want to see those
wording
amendments, so you want to see those
regarding
amendments? You
I
want to see
want to see
what?
those revisions before
Or,
I
okay,
accept
that,
the final plan.
okay. So a time to see those
yeah.
comments, okay.
We'll consider that a friendly amendment and it's acceptable to the motion maker.
Both of them, the in principle and the referring to the Community Center Steering Committee and the Recreation, what did you call it?
And Community Services Commission.
Thank you.
Okay.
Should it go to the Economic Development Committee too?
I think that would be fine.
And the Finance Committee
They
because
want
of
it
the
now.
cost
Throw it
implications?
under the pile.
Well, we are burying it now. I hope someone is going to read this out for the remedial group so we can actually understand what it is we're agreeing to, because I would welcome that.
We're referring it to a whole bunch of people and we're accepting it in principle.
Well, I guess
Furnish everybody.
the referral to the Parks, Trails, and Greenways Committee and to Bonnie is for the development of an implementation plan.
Yes.
I'm thinking that, to me, it needs to have some comment from these other committees before that happens.
You know,
I
we,
would-
as Parks, Trails, and Greenways Committee, we didn't comment on the Economic Development Committee's branding proposal, for example. We, you know, these things don't always go to other committees.
Excuse me, I think sending it to EDC is not so much for their input into it, but more to bring them into the loop. So it's going to them it would go to them for information, is what I would assume.
Right, but there's two different things happening here.
Yeah.
One is referral to all these other committees. The other is referral back to Parks and Trails for
To
an
implement
implementation plan. But if we're simply accepting it in principle at this point, is it not premature to be
get a
asking
second-
Parks and Trails to be implementing it if there's the potential that some of these points are going to be revised? So I would suggest that
We just sever it.
we strike, or strike the part of
We defer that.
for development of an implementation plan.
So,
Recommend that, or I guess you'd want to know why it was being referred to you.
yeah,
Go ahead.
perhaps, and I'm looking to staff here, perhaps what we could do is just sever the two recommendations and so that it just sits, that the committee, because Bonnie's still collecting input from us, right? And she's got to create the final version, which would come back to council. And at that time, council could, I think that's fine, just send it out to the other committees for implementation or for information. So the recommendation could just be that the committee of the whole recommend that council adopt the parks plan in principle attached, as attached to the October 16, 2017 report prepared by the manager of Parks and Environment.
And leave it at that. Then we'll refer it to the other committees of council at a future date.
When it's final, yeah.
Okay, that worked for everyone?
Okay.
So we have a seconder already. You're okay with the seconder?
Sorry, I'm just dealing with an email from my editor. Can you just reread?
Sure. That the committee of the whole recommend to council to adopt the parks plan as attached in principle to the October 6th,
No.
Parks plan
Parks plan in
as
principle
attached.
as attached to the October 16, 2017 report prepared by the manager of Parks and Environment. That's what we received today.
So, but you said we're not referring it to,
So we're recommending, committee of the whole recommend that council adopt the parks plan.
Once
principle.
council has, the council will refer it out. It's because it's in principle now and there are going to be some tweaks made.
Because Bonnie's
Before we
collecting our
refer it-
input, she's gonna make some tweaks, and then it's gonna come to council. So when council adopts it, whenever that is, then we can refer it out for implementation and information.
but I would like to see the two committees that I suggested have an opportunity for comment.
Can we sever it then and vote on that first and then go to a second motion in a moment?
Yes.
Just for quick clarity, okay? So the adopting in principle, referring it to council, that motion, we have a seconder. Okay, all in favor? Okay, so that is approved. Anyone wish to vote against? Okay, Allison,
I'm not as comfortable with the in principle as Maureen is, that things will get changed.
okay. And now,
Mr. Mayor, could I just say that I'm so open to sitting down with any member of council and really, really want to make this council and the community's report. So I am willing to make any suggested revisions within what we've heard today all make sense. So just you have my word that I will work with any member of council gladly.
But I think
to
these
prepare
changes
it.
also have to be done, as a council as well.
yes,
Yeah, just the typos,
That's-
and the
There's two different
revisions,
kinds of
the
changes.
council will be bringing it back to council. It'll be a collective sort of.
right, okay. So did you want to refer it to other committees at this point?
I think it just to speed up the process, I don't want to bog it down, so I think if we could send it out just to those two for comments, so that comments can be
But
coming
they
all
could
in.
change after council, is what we're saying.
Yeah, but they can throw in changes, suggestions.
I know what, it also strengthens, if we get comments coming back from committees that are very similar to ones that we brought up here as a council, then it kind of sometimes shows that really that's something really we need to be looking at. So I'm comfortable sending it out for comment now.
Okay, I'm going to go to Bonnie first. Thank you.
I was just wondering if I was able to incorporate some of the feedback I've had to date, typos, some little minor tweaks, some justification of some aspects of the plan before it gets sent out to the committees. I would just feel more comfortable because then that will be the most up-to-date version.
Oh, if that gives you comfort, fine, I just didn't want to be slowing down the
Yeah.
process. That was it.
All right.
Absolutely.
But I still think we should refer, I would be much more comfortable knowing that there isn't anything in this plan that conflicts with the recreation plan that's just been done or with the community center. I think there's more risk of conflict with the recreation plan than with the community center.
Right, yeah.
I agree.
But I really don't want to adopt something and then have two plans that are fighting with one another.
Right, but the community center, it's not a little far out there for, at this point?
I was hoping it wasn't about conflict, it was about how we can, all these different committees and stuff.
Mesh together.
Yes, rather than looking for places. I think we've got more opportunities for, elements that come together, and you can say, well, let's pair up on these elements, or at least everybody's aware that there's commonality, rather than finding conflict.
It's just the overlaps you want to try to.
Okay, so the, for sure recreation and parks, we could refer to those two. Why don't we leave it at that? for now?
Recreation and community services.
Okay,
And Parks is the one that's responsible for developing it, so they've
so
already
you've
seen
already
it.
got it.
Yeah.
It's just whether or not we want to do
I
an
mean, the working group would have
implementation plan.
reported to the Parks Committee.
We'll probably hold our implementation workshop with the draft, because we'll have to revisit it anyway before it comes to, we bring our annual work plan to council. So we'll work with the draft until we get the final one.
Okay, so are we doing a referral here? Anyone want to make a recommendation?
Do you want a referral now or not? Let's,
I can put together all the feedback I've had
Yeah.
to date, and it would be great to have it referred out to get more feedback from this
do
committee.
you want us to wait until you've had a chance, and maybe we do that
That's
at
3
the
weeks
council
from now.
meeting? Would that be,
There's no rush.
okay, fine, let's do that.
Yeah,
Fine.
that is a step by step. Okay.
Can you live with that, Allison?
No, I just wanted to, if there was some timeline with the process to,
I get it.
ask the manager of Parks and Environment to refer it to the community center and recreation and community services committees once she's made the minor amendments at this point.
Okay.
Made her initial
Do
amendment.
you want to make that a motion?
That's what-
Hi, Pat, did you take that?
Almost.
I move that the committee of the whole recommend to council that the October 16th, that the Parks Plan be referred to the Community Center Steering Committee and the Recreation and Community Services Committee. Is it committee or commission?
Commission.
Commission for comment. Once the manager of Parks and Environment has done the initial amendment.
I'll second that.
Okay. Anyone want to discuss it? Yeah, anyone want to go for it? All in favor?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Go around of applause.
Thank you very much. Very much. Great to have.
Thank you very
Thanks,
much.
council.
I thought it was real good. We are.
Next time, get the morning meeting.
All right. Got you hit us all 7 hours.
Yeah.
Then we're adjourned?
Oh, we asked for 2 updates.
I'm sorry.
You better bring it up. Your fault.
You want me to move people out? You want me to move people out of the hall?
No, they don't, well, I guess.
Not an elderly, but yeah.
Because it's.
It's not much fun here.
Maybe it's probably, but it's just, you want to-
Excuse me, guys, we have a little bit more of our meeting to do. If you can roll reports and stuff. Thank you. Oh,
you can stay long.
Glad to see you.
Or you can stay, yeah. It's really hard.
So, Melanie, you wanted to talk about the BC Housing?
Yeah, just an update, how are we doing with setting up a meeting with BC Housing?
Okay, I have got a phone call, James at BC Housing is going to phone me between 2 and 4 tomorrow afternoon.
I think
That's where we're at.
you and, was it you and Maureen met?
Oh, we met with BC Housing briefly at
UBCM?
UBCM, and so James said all of the money and the programs that are currently available are fully subscribed. However, we are at the top of the list in case one of those doesn't go through. How many times have you heard that one?
I recall hearing that from Calvin for years.
Yeah, you hear it from all of them. And there is new pools of money that are coming. and we are at the top of the list for those pools of money as well.
What kind of-
And he's really hopeful. So,
What kind of date is he talking about?
yeah, exactly. So what I want to talk to him about tomorrow, the preliminary things are there any timelines on real money? You said that you've done a pro forma, that you've accepted our needs assessment, or you've worked on the needs assessment. Can we get a copy of that,
Yeah.
please? So that we can update it. Can you tell us how much of a shortfall there is in case we want to try to fund it some other way? If you can give us some kind of a breakdown of what the costs incurred in this are, we would really appreciate that. Again,